Well, here's a big money match. And again, context is king. A lot of our listeners to this may probably not be familiar with NASCAR or Hermie Sadler, but Hermie Sadler was and is a big name in that world. And now he's going to have his first wrestling match. Yes, he's wrestling a match against K Crush, who we know is Ron Killings or R-Truth. And Hermie gets the win by DQ. The write-up says, well-booked match. Sadler got enough offense to please the fans, but the offense was always a result of Crush getting too cocky, not because Sadler actually was presented as a credible opponent against Crush. Crush scored the pin at 5 minutes and 15 seconds, but the decision was reversed when Crush took some post-pin pot shots. So 2 stars, but your old friend Hermie, who I know you're tight with in real life, you've convinced to become a wrestler here, or at least wrestle in a match. And man, how great was Ron Killings to help him get to a passable appearance here?
I didn't have to twist Hermie's arm at all. He's a lifelong wrestling fan, loves it, thinking through this, knowing we're coming up on this and how the Titans were involved. And, that's mainstream as you can get. But Hermie, was I think 1993 Rookie of the Year and drove in every division in NASCAR, Cup and every series. And his brother drove as well. And that name, they'd been around anyway. So him being a wrestling fan and also an incredible entrepreneur, he wanted to do this. And it goes without saying how many times have I admired and chatted up and said, how great Ron Killings is.
Oh, yeah, for real.
He's still a regular appearance because he's so diverse. He can have a match as a heel or a babyface, comedy, serious, championship material, tag. He can do it all. And you just said that Dave gave him a 2-star. That's pretty damn incredible for your first match on pay-per-view. And granted, going into this, Hermie he's a promoter. I mean, a big time PR marketing guy. His family's been in the car business. They've been in a little bit of all kinds of businesses, but he got a lot of publicity coming into this match, and he did it several times for us and coming out of the match. I didn't have anything to do with his training, but I was certainly knew enough to know Ron Killings, and Ronnie lived over in Charlotte and Hermie lived right across the border in Virginia at Emporia. So I knew that the match would be not just passable, highly entertaining. I'll say that.
Let's talk a little bit about the way you booked Hermie in the match, because this is something that I feel like you can provide insight to, since you're not only the guy running the show, but an actual wrestler yourself. Let me repeat this here. Sadler got enough offense to please the fans, but the offense was always a result of Crush getting too cocky, not because Sadler was actually presented as a credible opponent against Crush. A lot of times when a celebrity comes in, Jeff, they're pulling off these big moves and they're using them on the actual wrestler in the match. And it almost offends a lot of people who are diehard wrestling fans. Like, wait a minute, we're supposed to believe that this guy can withstand this same move from all these other wrestlers. But when this funky ass celebrity does it, he can't possibly match that. Bullshit. This match was booked differently, and that feels like that's the way you and your dad would have wanted it. Can you talk about the difference?
Wow, we are really getting into the weeds here. This is so I've had this conversation through the years. I don't know how many times. And Conrad, I don't believe we've ever had this conversation, but
no, you and I have never discussed this.
I'm going to give it a shot. Because I've had to explain this to many people, even, an attorney buddy of mine, an accountant, whatever it may be. They're like, how, Gronkowski, I think I had this conversation last year. Well, Bad Bunny, that's another really good example. But I think when you lay out a match, there's this crazy thing called wrestling logic.
Yes.
and the logic being, look, running the ropes doesn't make sense.
Not at all.
You didn't see Conor McGregor bounce off the cage and come back with a flying forearm.
No, you didn't
see in MMA, collar and elbow, lock up, headlock, takeover. I mean, it's what we do as an art. But just the wrestling logic of laying out a match, and I like to say, if I were to go back in time, I'd say, hey, Ronnie, whatever you're going to do out there, beat yourself. And that's, playing to get so cocky that it's your mistake that gives him the upper hand, not anything he did. And that's how you lay out something that makes wrestling logic to make a amateur or an outsider come in and look good. And it's highly entertaining. It's much more entertaining. And a lot of times a wrestling fan can't put their thumb on it other than that didn't look right. That shouldn't have happened. It didn't pass the sniff test. And it's that wrestling logic that either you pass or you don't.
So let's jump into your training of Hermie Sadler. Is that something you're working out at the house with him? Or are you going down a couple of days ahead of time, the day of? How do you put together a match with a true non-wrestler, but someone who is familiar because they're a lifelong fan?
With Hermie being on show 1, and I don't have complete recollection of this, but knowing that we're going to build, because we set this up in Huntsville on some shape, form, or fashion, because Killings came out with him and Sterling Marlin in the ring on the first episode. So we were building toward this. Again, Ronnie Killings lives in Charlotte. Hermie lives in Emporia, Virginia. It's about 2 hours apart. You guys find you a wrestling ring, work it out. And they both had assured me that they could have a hell of a match. And I believed them, and they did.
So backstage, we see Amore warming up for his title shot, and Alicia, aka Ryan Shamrock, approaches him and he gives her a wad of cash. Did Amore know this segment, what it meant when he did it, do you think?
Hell, I don't know what it means right now, but no, I don't recall all the ins and outs. And I'll say this was a Jarrett, Vince Russo, and or I just don't recall this specific.
The Hot Shots, which is Cassidy O'Reilly and Chase Stevens, are going to fight Mark and Jay Briscoe to a double DQ when Malice attacked all four. Of course, we know Mark and Jay Briscoe are staples in Ring of Honor then and now. They've both gone on to have great success as a tag team and individually and all the above. Cassidy O'Reilly, though, and Chase Stevens, what can you tell us about those fellas?
The Briscoes, all those guys. So this is July of 2002. I don't know if anybody was a mainstay of Ring of Honor because they were brand new as well. I recall they launched about this time. But anyway, those are two guys that I always wish we could have got the opportunity to have them full time, but a great tag team. But Chase, which Andy Douglas came in later, but Cassidy and the Hot Shots, just a really, really good bump taking heel team that could get the job done. Always been big fans of those guys.